and welcome to IELTS academic test preparation videos. The materials and information provided in this lesson can be found on our website at www.aehelp.com. For more information and test preparation material, please check our website and join our full course. Okay, now that you've learned the vocabulary for describing a trend, let's try to draw a graph. First, you're going to need to get a piece of paper, a pen or a pencil, and something to erase it in case you need to fix one of your mistakes. Okay, do you have your paper and your pencil? Let's give this a try. I'm going to help you set up your graph. Once we set up your graph, I'm going to read the sentences to you so that you are able to draw the graph according to what your knowledge of the vocabulary is. And we'll try reading those sentences many different ways so you get used to how you can use the vocabulary for IELTS. So first, we have to start by drawing our X and Y axes of the graph. So your Y axis, also known as your vertical axes, is going to represent percentage at intervals of 5%. So let's start at 0 and do intervals of 5% all the way up to 25. So let's start at 0. 2, 3. This will be 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, and 25%. So that is your vertical axes. Now let's label your horizontal axes, also known as your x-axes. One way to remember this is the horizontal axis. It acts like the horizon when you're looking out to sea. It goes across. So on your horizontal axes, we're going to label the months of the year, from January through to December. It is okay to use abbreviations, but remember in IELTS, spelling is important, and using the correct abbreviation is also important. So let's write the months of the year. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. They all fit in. Okay, do you have your graph set up like this? Now, I'm going to read sentences for you using the vocabulary from our list that we've just made to help you draw your own graph. However, I'm not going to draw it with you. We'll compare answers at the end. Are you ready? So first, I'll be describing the part of the graph starting at the beginning, using vocabulary to describe things when there is no change. Do you remember that vocabulary? Okay, we'll be using words like remain, unchanged, steady, stable, constant, and fixed or static. So listen carefully and let's start drawing our graph. Okay, here we go. From January to March, the percentage of adults taking vitamins remained fairly static at approximately 10%. Okay, so we'll be starting at 10%. I should remind you that the title of this is Vitamin Use by Adults over 1 year. Okay, so we will be describing this trend throughout the year for vitamins. So once again, from January to March, the percentage of adults taking vitamins remained fairly static at approximately 10%. I'll rephrase that. The percentage of adults taking vitamins was relatively stable during the first 2 months of the year. Once again, during the first 2 months, vitamin use remained fairly unchanged. You got it? Great. Now, let's review the vocabulary to describe a fall, or when the graph goes down. Okay, so when the graph is going down, there'll be a fall, or a decrease, or a drop, or a plunge, or a decline. The adverbs that describe this could be slightly, steadily, gradually, gently, and slowly. So it's going to be a gentle decline. Okay, listen carefully from March. It then fell gradually in March. I'll say that again. There was a slight decrease in the use of vitamins in March. The graph shows a slight decrease in March. Another way to say this, vitamin use experienced a steady decrease in March. Okay, are you getting the idea? Great. Now let's remember the word fluctuated. Do you remember what fluctuated means? It was moving up and down. Okay. So the next part of the line graph, it went up and down widely over the next 2 months. Or it fluctuated for the following 2 months. Okay, we're all the way down to June. Are you still following? Okay, we're now going to use the vocabulary to describe when something goes up quickly. Okay, so we'll be using rise, grow, climb, shoot up, and the adverbs dramatic, sharp, significant, and rapid. Okay, so you should have a vision in your mind of what is happening to this graph to describe an upward trend. Okay, here we go. There was a significant increase in the percentage of adults taking vitamins between June and August. I'll say that another way. The period between June and August saw a dramatic growth in the use of vitamins. Or you could say between June and August, the percentage of adults taking vitamin shot up dramatically. Another way to say that is the greatest rise was from June to August, when it rose by 22% for 2 consecutive months from June to August. How are you doing? Okay, let's continue with our graph. We've reached a peak. Peak is the highest point of the graph. So let's describe it. The percentage of adults taking vitamins when it was at its highest peak in August. Or I could also say it reached a high of 25% in August. Now I'm going to use the vocabulary to describe a fast fall. Okay? The vocabulary that we'll be refreshing is fall, to decrease, drop, with the adverbs dramatically, sharply, significantly, and rapidly. So you can have the vision of it going quite quickly. Make sure you incorporate that into your graph. Here we go. Between August and October, this figure dropped dramatically to 11%. I'll say that another way. From August to October, there was a drop of 14% in the percentage of adults taking vitamins. Okay, the difference is the drop to 11%, which is here, which is quite different than a drop of 14%, which is from 25 down to 11. I'll continue with another way to say that idea. Between August and October, there was a considerable fall in the percentage of adults using vitamins. One more time. This was followed by a sharp drop of 14% over the next 2 months. Or vitamin use experienced a dramatic fall between August and October. You should now have a pretty good idea of where this graph is going. Finally, and we're close to the end because we're close to the end of the year, we're going to use vocabulary to describe a small fall, a much more gentle description. And to review that vocabulary, we could use fall, decrease, drop, plunge, decline, or even reached its lowest point. With the adverbs slight, slightly, steadily, gradually, gently, and slowly. So you can imagine it's a much softer part of the graph when you're describing it. Try to finish your graph using these sentences. Between October and December, the decrease in the use of vitamins was at a much slower pace than in the previous few months. Or let's try that again. Vitamin use continued to fall steadily over the next 2 months until it reached its lowest point in December. Finally, I'll say, it fell to a low of only 5% in December. So, how did you do? What does your graph look like? Why don't we compare it to the graph that we've drawn here? Please use the video to review the language and follow along if you weren't sure where the graph was going. It's good practice to try to do this again. You can also do this with a friend. You can find a graph, write out a description of the trending vocabulary, and explain it to your friend while your friend writes it down. And you can do a comprehension check to see if your graph looks like what your friend has drawn. And of course, they can do this for you. The more you practice, the easier it will get for you to describe trends in a line graph. Once you're getting confident that your skills are getting more successful and you have a better understanding of the vocabulary in the graph, you can send it to the AE Help Task 1 writing service to get it checked. I wish you success in your Task 1 writing. Good luck! To see the rest of this video and to get lots more help on your IELTS academic test preparation, please visit our webpage at www.aehelp.com. To help improve your score on your next test, join our full course.